Hey, Dr. John Finn here. Welcome to the Habit Mechanic podcast. Right now, you can get my new best-selling book, Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution, at tougherminds.co.uk. The digital book, audiobook, and physical book are all available at a special price that you won't find anywhere else.
Welcome to this podcast about the Habit Mechanic games. It's the third in a series of podcasts explaining what the games are all about, how they can benefit you, and how you can take part. I'm joined by Dr. John Finn, the creator of Habit Mechanic University and the games as well, to tell us more. Now, John, in this podcast, we're going to talk about peak cognitive performance and how people can begin to improve it, get extra hours of peak cognitive performance every day, which I know you have been helping people with very successfully in recent times. So please do tell us more.
Yeah, well, people might be more familiar with the term high charge brain states. And when you're in a high charge brain state, this is peak cognitive performance. And essentially, it means you've got the right neurotransmitters, chemicals, proteins in your brain to get to the right activation level. So you can really focus, you can think cleverly, you can think creatively, you can think strategically. It's when you're really at your best. And we know that every day, this is a limited capacity for the human brain. Our brain is a bit like a battery. Literally, it runs on chemicals and electricity. And we can only get into those brain states for a limited amount of time per day. We call it a scarce cognitive resource. And what's happened, I think, particularly since the pandemic, is that it's become harder and harder to get into these peak cognitive performance states because we're being consumed by busyness, digital interruptions, or a brain function, bombarded by lots of things that create overwhelm. So people talk about brain fog and imposter syndrome and all this stuff that just points towards your brain's not working very well. And what we see is that on average, people might be doing 1 or 2 hours of peak cognitive performance per day, but that means that they're leaving 3 or 4 hours on the table. So what we see is that by following our methodology, and this is the methodology that we're gamifying now in the habit mechanic games, is that you're able to unlock at least an extra 3 hours of peak cognitive performance every single day. And the beauty of this is doing that not only makes you feel good about yourself because you actually achieve things, your brain works better, you make progress, you get to the end of the day and you feel good about yourself, but it also means that you're able to do work consistently that AI can't do. So, I think we're in a really interesting period of history where I think it's almost going to be a bit like the COVID pandemic, where it kind of people became aware of it and what's this thing, and it seems to be having quite a negative impact. And all of a sudden, bang, there was lockdown. I don't think AI integration will happen quite as dramatically as that, but I think we're talking about that kind of pace. And what's going to happen is that you're going to have to do less work because some of the work you're going to do is going to get replaced by AI. But the kind of work that you're going to have to do is going to be peak cognitive performance work. So that's really is what our system is about. This is not a productivity hack. That's not what this is about. This is about spending more time in your optimal brain states. Because, of course, to get into more high charge brain states so you can do more peak cognitive performance work, it means you have to have higher quality downtime, proper sleep, proper rest, and just create a better balance across your life. So that's what peak cognitive performance is. And I'll just say one more thing, extend that, because we know the currency of being at our best in the very challenging world we live in is actually deliberate focus and deliberate effort, because we have to consistently learn how to adapt to the world as it changes. So for some people before the pandemic, they had no problem getting a good night's sleep, completely fine. Now they're struggling because the conditions of the world have changed. Some people 10 years ago concentrating for long periods was no problem. Easy, can do it standing on my head. Now they're struggling because the world around them has changed. And that means that their brain function has changed. So what we're doing is, when we're in our peak cognitive performance brain states, we're not only doing clever things at work, that's also the brain state that we need to work on ourselves, to build new super habits. It could be a new sleeping super habit, or a new confidence super habit, or a new leadership super habit. And that's the main reason why people fall down when they're trying to make change, is because they agree with everything in principle. These are the things that I get would be a good idea to do, but then they're not able to get into those high charge brain states consistently enough to put the effort in they need to put into to automate the new behaviors. So I just want to get across how all encompassing the power of consistently getting in to peak cognitive brain states is.
Yeah, it's funny. You just briefly on the AI revolution. I've heard so many people talk about learning to adapt to AI, and then when you drill into it, they just mean using a piece of software or a platform that's AI powered. I don't hear anyone else talking about it in the terms that you do, of this more fundamental shift where you need to be more innovative and creative as a human, and to do that you need to be giving your peak cognitive performance. So I think that's really fascinating. Now I do know that if people want to start improving their getting more peak cognitive performance every day, more hours, the place you guide them to start is with the peak cognitive performance test on the Tougher Minds website.
Yeah, so there's an assessment on the homepage of the Tougher Minds website. It's not been there for long, so if you haven't checked it out, check it out. And that's getting you to think about practically how you are spending your time and what is getting in the way of you being at your best. So people that are familiar with our self-assessments understand that we have this scoring system of 1 out of 10, because we think that's a really fast way to get people thinking in a constructive way. And here's a couple of the statements. I waste time doubting my decision, second guessing myself and beating myself up. If you never do that, you give yourself a 1. If you always do that, you give yourself a 10. You're probably somewhere in between. Another one, my mind feels foggy and it slows down my work. If you never feel like that, you give yourself a 1. If you always feel like that, you give yourself a 10. I feel overwhelmed and I make mistakes that take time to fix, meaning it takes me longer to complete my work to a high standard. Again, if you always do that, you give yourself a 10. If you never do that, give yourself a 1. So that's the kind of cadence. There's one here. I get distracted, including by my own self-doubt and negative self-talk, meaning it takes longer to complete my work to a high standard. So, and then we've got, some about a diet. We saw the data, didn't we, a few weeks ago, how junk food is costing the UK economy alone about 270 billion a year. There's an interesting aside. One of my clients was telling me that when government started to clamp down on the tobacco companies, they all went and bought fast food companies, and they laced lots of addictive substances into the fast food. But here's one to get you thinking about that. My diet choices leave me feeling sluggish, and it takes me longer to complete my work to a high standard. Never feel like that, you give yourself a 1. Always feel like that, give yourself a 10. And the final one, lack of regular exercise, 10,000 plus steps, elevated heart rate, reduces my mental energy and focus. So lack of regular exercise reduces my mental energy and focus. 1, never, 10, always. So that's the flavor. And then you ultimately get a score, and that score mirrors where your brain state is at. So we have 3 core score groupings. The highest score grouping is what we call the cross the bear profile. This is where your brain states are predominantly in the medium charge zone. So you're not doing enough recharge and you can't get into the high charge brain state. The middle score is what we call the jagged jewel. So you've got some good things going on, but still overly dominated by the medium charge brain states. And then the best profile is the arrowhead profile, where you've got a nice balance between a strong basis of recharge, the middle is medium charge, and the highest level is consistently doing your 4 to 5 hours of high charge brain state work, or in other words, peak cognitive performance activities, both on yourself but at work as well. Doesn't matter where you are, we're going to show you in the games how to move from where you are to a better profile. And even if you are in the arrowhead profile, I guarantee you can do significantly more peak cognitive performance work. We've seen that time and time again. And sometimes and very often, 3 hours, over 3 hours, consistently. We're not talking about burning out one day and then not doing anything for the rest of the week, or getting such a bad balance across Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that we're just flat out on Friday. We're talking about getting a consistent balance. So that's the flavour.
Yeah, great, John. So it's great to understand then that we've got this test, peak cognitive performance test. You've given us some insight into how you would analyze and categorize those outcomes for people. From there, then, what steps would people start to take? And of course, this is all part of the Habit Mechanic games in the Habit Mechanic University app. What steps would people start to take to get more peak cognitive performance every day?
Yeah, so once they understand their brain state score and they understand in more depth what that means, so we unpack the different brain states step by step in the onboarding course in the Habit Mechanic University. We then start to think about our activation levels and understanding what brain states mean in terms of neurotransmitters and the activity of your brain, but in a really simple way through the lens of our activation model. And you start to map out what your activation looks like over the course of a day versus what you'd like it to look like. We then get you starting to think about what we call your future ambitious meaningful story to get that motivation charged up. And then we show you how to create your first willpower story. And then you can go deeper into any of those areas if you want in the onboarding course. But that's the journey that we take you on, is we help you to understand where your brain state score currently is, what that actually means, and how you can step by step, in just as little as 10 minutes per day, start to do things differently that help you to rebalance. Again, not just high charge. It's about getting the balance between good recharge, good medium charge, and good high charge. And this is the reality. And I really understand what you're saying. AI seems to be everywhere. AI tools, AI this, AI that. What I've not heard anyone else talk about yet, and I believe we're the only people speaking about this, is it's okay adopting AI tools, but you need to ready your workforce to be able to optimally sync with how they use those tools. Because they're going to take some of our work, but they can't do everything that we can do. And the expertise we have can and is helping companies to get that balance right faster so that they can really optimize the integration between AI and human beings. Humans are feeling overwhelmed and threatened by AI. The good news is when you learn how to create a willpower story and you habitualize that, that's going to help you to not only integrate AI efficiently and effectively into your day-to-day, but it's also going to help you to add much more value to the organization by bringing your best human self. And this is not just at work, this is life as well, because AI is going to come into everything that we do. So I think we can use it as a tool to empower us and speed up, helping us to be healthier, happier, at our best, get off this conveyor belt of just being busy. But there's a roadmap to doing that, and we've sort of done the hard work, if you like. All you need to do now is turn up to the games and just follow the step-by-step guide, and you'll get better results.
Well, John, thanks for that. We'll talk more in the next podcast about using a willpower story and the concept of activation to really understand how they play such a role in delivering more peak cognitive performance for people. But just a reminder that the Habit Mechanic University games are part of the Habit Mechanic University app. You can take part, of course, if you're already a member of the app. If you've signed up to the app perhaps and haven't activated it yet, haven't started using it yet, well, the games are a perfect place to begin. If you're not yet a user of the Habit Mechanic University app, don't worry. You can download it from your app store and take part in a free trial, a free 14-day trial. And then, of course, you can take part in the Habit Mechanic games. So check those out, find out more. You can find out more about the Habit Mechanic games using the link in the description of this podcast. John, thanks for joining us. Thank you for listening, and bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Habit Mechanic podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe and tell someone else about one of the ideas or insights that you found most interesting.